The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is just a few short months away, and we still know almost nothing about it. The short teasers we've gotten so far have been pretty light on information, so as of right now, the possibilities are endless for what could be included. I'm sure there's going to be a much bigger trailer released eventually to lead up to launch. In fact, there's probably a Nintendo Direct right around the corner that will make this video outdated. But I don't really care. I just want to dive into some pure speculation and throw all my ideas out there before the next big trailer starts confirming and denying stuff. I've got a lot of things I want to see in this sequel, so I thought I'd put it all together and make a big list of stuff I hope will be in this game. I'm doing my best to make each of these pretty specific and detailed, and not just general stuff like I hope the story is better. These will all be solid, provable things that I can look back on when the game comes out and definitively say if they happened or not. It's been so many years since this game was announced that my excitement levels have definitely gone down a bit, so this is kind of my way of re-energizing my Zelda hype. Brand new 3D Zelda games don't come out every day, so I've really got to enjoy these next few months of anticipation. Now without any further ado, let's get into 25 hopes I have for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I think one of the easiest ways to make Hyrule fun to explore again is to add underwater exploration. There's a couple large bodies of water across the map that don't really add anything to the experience. They're just kind of obstacles that get in your way. So letting Link swim under the surface would give you even more places to discover. Thanks to some glitches, we've seen that there's super cool coral reefs underneath the water, so the basic structure is already there. All that's needed is updated swimming controls with some atmospheric underwater music. We already know that the map is being expanded to the skies, and I think going below the water would be another great addition. Assuming that this dead guy really is Ganondorf, one of my biggest hopes is that he speaks. Calamity Ganon was such a disappointing antagonist for the story of Breath of the Wild because he never really did anything other than scream loudly at you. It works okay for that game since it's presented as a force of nature instead of a person, but I still think it's time we got another proper villain character. I'm scared that this new Ganondorf will just make zombie noises and then attack you, where I'd really prefer he actually has lines of dialogue. This would also mean Ganondorf would have a voice actor for the first time ever, so I hope that's done well too. Breath of the Wild's story gets a lot of criticism, and I think it's mostly due to the way the story is presented. The cutscenes themselves are actually pretty incredible, but almost all of them are flashback memories instead of current events. I was so excited for the Champion's Ballad because I thought the story would finally be moving forward, but it ended up being more flashbacks. Which is fine, by the way, I love that DLC, but I do think it's time to move on from the past. The easiest way to make the story feel more involved and interesting is to make all the cutscenes happen in the here and now, with things happening that directly affect the present. Probably one of the most frequent requests I see for this game is for it to have proper Zelda dungeons, and I think the most important element of classic dungeons is the theming. The Divine Beasts have pretty solid puzzles and mechanics. The problem is that they all have the exact same theme, which is also shared with the many different shrines in the open world. So I hope every dungeon in this game has a fresh and unique theme. Honestly, I'd even be happy with just the basic forest, fire, and water temple themes, but it would also be really cool to see totally original ideas that have never been in the series before. The Divine Beasts were also pretty small and short, so I want the newly themed dungeons to be bigger and more complex as well. I don't really know how realistic this one is, but I'd love to see the main objective of this game be something other than saving Zelda. I know that basically every Zelda game ever has had this as the main goal, but where this game is a direct sequel, we literally just saved her. So I'm hoping Tears of the Kingdom takes an approach more similar to Majora's Mask, where you're fighting against some larger, terrifying threat. I'd also like to see Zelda have more involvement in the story, instead of being sidelined the whole time, as this version of Zelda has so much potential for character growth and cool story moments. But that's looking a little unlikely since she fell off a cliff into the dark abyss and all. Adding classic items is another common request, but I'm going to narrow my hope down to just one item in particular. The hookshot is one of the all-time best Zelda items, and I think it would work so well in the engine and world of this Hyrule. I think stuff like being able to combo from the hookshot into your glider would be so amazing, and I'm fine with it only working on certain surfaces and having a limited range, so it doesn't completely break the open world or dungeons. The hookshot was actually going to be included in Breath of the Wild, but was cut in development. There's even some early concept art from Breath of the Wild where Link has this sort of grapple arm, and he's also holding a broken Master Sword, so this one could actually be possible. Another one of the weak points of Breath of the Wild were the boss fights. By the time you're fighting the same looking Blight Ganon for the 4th time, it gets a little old. They're all roughly the same size and feel very similar to fight against. So for Tears of the Kingdom, I want boss fights that are larger in scale and more exciting to fight. Fights like the one against Master Koga are fun, but it's so easy that it's hardly even a challenge, so the difficulty could go up a bit as well. The Zelda series is usually so good at making boss fights at the end of dungeons. Whether you're fighting a giant flying dragon or a massive ancient corrupted statue, these battles have a sense of scale and importance that I hope come back. To help keep the gameplay feel fresh for this sequel, I think new weapon types would really help. There doesn't need to be a ton of new weapons, but 1 or 2 would really make a difference. Maybe some sort of weapon that works best for sky combat, or something that's most effective underwater. It'd also be cool to see the old weapon types get some new moves, so using a classic sword or spear feels more interesting for the second time. Or even some sort of system where you unlock new combo moves throughout the game, like the hidden skills from Twilight Princess. This one is pretty similar to the underwater one, where adding caves would do so much to make Hyrule fun to explore again. Long, winding cave systems that dive deep underground, full of enemies and chests, would give the player a lot more to do in the open world. Having caves also feels like a natural balancing point for the sky. I think this one is even more likely than swimming underwater, since the first trailer we ever saw for this game was focused mainly on Link and Zelda exploring a giant cave. The final fight against Calamity Ganon is pretty lame, especially when compared to the previous final bosses in the series. Having the champions and divine beasts attack at the start is a cool story moment, but it means that Ganon is already at half health before the battle even begins. And then there's the weird giant pig fight that's more like a cutscene than an actual boss fight, since it's super easy to dodge all the attacks and hit the giant glowing targets. This is probably just a personal thing, but I'd also like the final moment to be Link stabbing Ganondorf with the Master Sword, instead of shooting the Bow of Light. One of my absolute favorite parts of Breath of the Wild is the progressive dungeon music that evolves as you work your way through the divine beasts. I love how the music adds more and more elements as you get closer to finishing it, with a sped up, intense version playing as you make your way to the boss room. So this hope is simply that they do that again with the new dungeons. And it would also be awesome if they did this sort of thing with other parts of the soundtrack as well, like how the Terrytown theme changes as you complete the quest. There aren't very many enemy types in the original game, which means you end up fighting Bokoblins, Lizalfos, Moblins, and Guardians pretty frequently. It doesn't really matter if you're exploring the desert or the snowy mountains, you'll pretty much be fighting the same enemies. So adding a lot more enemy types would be fantastic, especially if they're specific to certain sections of the map or dungeons. There are plenty of enemies from Zelda's history that they could bring back, like Redeads, Darknuts, or Wallmasters. As much as I love the Guardians, I can only fight against them so many times before it's not really scary anymore, so having more enemy types would really help the gameplay feel more fresh for longer. Breath of the Wild's title screen is strangely really boring. Zelda games usually have such fantastic title screens, so it's really weird to not even have music playing on the opening screen. I don't know if they thought that having quality title screens was a convention they wanted to break, but I'm hoping Tears of the Kingdom has a much better one. I think this one is pretty likely since it's a really low bar, since pretty much anything is better than a PowerPoint slideshow of the promotional art. Not too much to say with this one. I just hope one of the very best Zelda characters makes a return. We've seen what characters like Beetle look like in this art style, and now it's Tingle's turn. I even think he could serve a gameplay purpose, as who better to chart the new Sky Islands and sell maps than Tingle and his flying red balloon? I can see it now, looking up in the sky and seeing this beautiful man flying above me. Bring Tingle back, Nintendo, do it. Another one of my favorite things Breath of the Wild did was the super epic set pieces where you attacked the divine beasts. These awesome moments were the highlights of the game for me. Well, all of them except the Varudania one. I hope Tears of the Kingdom brings back these sorts of moments, and makes them longer and even more involved. I love the idea of having to fight your way into each dungeon, and working together with different characters is awesome too. This is also where some of the very best Breath of the Wild music comes from, so that's part of why I want them to come back too. I've seen a lot of people asking for a full-on crafting system to be added into the game, and while I think that would be cool, I don't want it to be the main focus. I think it would be great if there was a more interesting use for all your materials, like maybe being able to restore your weapon's durability when they're close to breaking. But I don't want the crafting to become the main gameplay loop where all you do is collect and craft stuff constantly. So I'd love to see a sort of expansion on the cooking system with other materials, but personally I'd like it to be a pretty light crafting system that stays in the background. The first teaser we ever got for Tears of the Kingdom had a super dark and scary atmosphere, which has kind of faded into the background with the newer trailers. So my hope is that the horror vibes will stay throughout the whole game, and not only in the opening scene with Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf. The sky looks pretty bright and happy, so I'm hoping the lore surrounding all of it still has that spooky atmosphere that the announcement trailer set up so well. I don't need the game to be as scary and depressing as Majora's Mask, but an overall darker tone throughout the story would be great. This is kind of a weird one, but I hope there's some sort of musical instrument item in Tears of the Kingdom. I know this is pretty much the definition of the Zelda formula that the team is trying so hard to move away from, but I don't know, I guess I just miss having an instrument you can mess around with. It doesn't have to be a super important item that's central to the plot, but it would be amazing if you could find an ocarina lying around and play different songs on it. I will admit that this hope is pretty much just total nostalgia, but it's just something I think would be cool to see. The Zonai have been the topic of conversation among the Zelda theory community for a couple years now, and I'm hoping that it wasn't all for nothing and the Zonai will actually play an important role in Tears of the Kingdom. I'm thinking they're the ancient tribe focused on the courage piece of the Triforce, where the Sheikah focused on wisdom and the Yiga focused on power. There's the blue Sheikah wisdom energy, the red Malice power energy, and the green courage Zonai energy. But I'll stop my theorizing there for now. This hope is just that the secrets of the Zonai will finally be revealed in this game. It's always raining at the worst possible times in Breath of the Wild, and there's pretty much nothing you can do about it. I'm totally okay with the idea of the weather affecting your climbing ability, but I think there should be some way to deal with it. So I hope that there will be some rain gear included in the sequel that lets you climb normally even during the rain. Or if not clothing that does that, some other way of dealing with the rain without just waiting patiently. A lot of us have complained about the rain, so I'm hoping they'll actually listen and do something. Breath of the Wild has a pretty solid photo mode, but I want it to be even better. I hope there's a way to get rid of the display around the camera so getting cinematic footage would be a lot easier, and being able to send the photos you take to your Switch gallery would be really nice as well. I'm sure the new sites and locations of this game will be gorgeous, so I want the best possible photo mode so I can capture all the best moments of my journey. I also love the Hyrule Compendium feature in the original and hope that makes a return as well. Okay, this one is me just being irrational. The Nintendo Switch is nearly 6 years old now, and it struggles to run pretty much everything. It pains me to think about the brand new Zelda game being held back by the hardware, so I wish by some miracle this game could have much better performance. After playing Skyward Sword HD and getting used to the concept of 3D Zelda at 60 FPS, it's gonna be tough to go back. Now obviously the only way this would happen is if an upgraded Switch got announced in the next couple months, which isn't seeming very likely. So even though I know this one is basically impossible, I'm still including it anyway because I really wish it would happen. This one is a little strange and very specific, but I really hope Tears of the Kingdom has 3 save files per profile on the Switch. It sucks that the only way to replay Breath of the Wild is either to delete all of your data and start over, or make a new profile on your Switch and play on that instead. I love replaying Zelda games, and having multiple save files on the same profile would just make life a little easier for future playthroughs. Okay, this one is very specific as well, but it's something that gets annoying really fast. Basically, whenever opening a chest that has a weapon in it in Breath of the Wild, you get a message that your inventory is full, and then you have to open the menu, drop a weapon, and then open the chest again. It sounds small, but it adds up over time when it happens so often. So all I want is a simple option to swap out weapons after opening a chest, so you can grab your new weapon and drop an old one in one swift movement. I really have no idea if this will happen, but I can hope. And finally, for my last hope, I'm going to do kind of a general one, which I know I said I wouldn't do, but just let me have this. Possibly my biggest hope for Tears of the Kingdom is that the open world feels fresh and is fun to explore again. The fact that they're reusing the same map of Hyrule is pretty concerning to me, as the magic of the first game was not knowing what was around every corner. I've played Breath of the Wild for a lot of hours, so I'm pretty familiar with the map. So I just hope that exploring still feels exciting somehow, even though it's the same Hyrule. This one will probably end up being a subjective opinion that changes for every person, so we'll have to see how it plays out. It's probably too much to ask from this game for it to feel as special as the first one did, but who says my hopes have to be reasonable? And that's 25 hopes I have for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I'm not expecting all of these things to actually be included, and it's not like I'll be disappointed if Nintendo doesn't match my every demand. These are just some things that I think would be cool, and I hope at least some of them end up happening. But what about you? What are some hopes you have for this game, and what are you most excited to see? Let me know in the comments. I know I kind of complained about Breath of the Wild a lot in this video, but I promise it's all coming from a place of love for this game. And I think Tears of the Kingdom has the potential to perfect what came before by fixing some of its weak points to create something truly special. And I can't wait to play it on May 12th. That's all I've got for this one, so thanks for watching guys, and I'll see ya in the next one.